Welcome to another episode of Growth Digger, where we unpack what's really changing in marketing, content, and growth today. I'm Abeer Aulakh, Director of Marketing and Communications at Dig Growth. Today's conversation is about something many teams are experiencing but not always able to articulate clearly: what happens when content creation becomes too easy. We've moved from struggling to produce content to producing it at scale almost instantly. But with that shift, new challenges have started to emerge, especially around quality, clarity, and brand identity. In many ways, AI has solved the production problem, but it has also introduced a more complex layer, managing that production in a way that still feels intentional and aligned with the brand. To explore this in depth, I'm joined by Akanksha Das, Director of Marketing and Communications at Growth Natives. Akanksha has been working closely on building content systems that don't just scale output but also protect brand voice and strategic clarity.
Thanks, Abeer. This is a very timely conversation because what we're seeing now isn't a visible breakdown. It's a gradual shift in how teams think, create, and evaluate content.
Let's start with a big shift. Earlier, content teams struggled with bandwidth and deadlines. Now, with AI, that problem seems almost solved. So, where's the new challenge?
You're right, the constraint has flipped completely. Earlier, the challenge was producing enough content. Now, the challenge is managing the volume of content being produced. AI has made it incredibly easy to generate multiple drafts, variations, and formats within minutes. That creates a sense of speed and productivity, but it also introduces noise.
So, it looks like progress on the surface.
Exactly, but underneath, teams are dealing with a different kind of complexity. The real issue is that when content becomes abundant, decision making becomes harder. You're no longer asking, what should we create? You're asking, which of these many versions is actually right?
That brings us to prompt fatigue. It's a term we're hearing more often now. How would you explain it in a practical sense?
Prompt fatigue isn't just about being tired of using AI tools, it's more about the mental loop teams get stuck in, generating content, reviewing it, tweaking prompts, and generating again. On paper, it feels efficient because you're not starting from scratch, but in reality, you're constantly navigating between multiple, almost right versions.
And that almost right space is tricky.
It is, because none of the options feel fully aligned, yet all of them require time and attention to evaluate. Over time, that creates cognitive fatigue.
So, this leads to decision exhaustion.
Yes, very directly. Instead of spending energy on shaping ideas, teams spend energy on filtering options. And when that happens repeatedly, it reduces clarity and slows down strategic thinking.
And what happens to editorial quality in this process?
That's where editorial numbness sets in. When you know you can generate another version at any time, nothing feels final. Content stops feeling like a finished piece and starts feeling like a temporary output.
So, ownership weakens.
Exactly. If nothing feels final, no one fully owns the narrative.
Akanksha, how does prompt fatigue impact creativity?
It changes the role of the creator. Writers and strategists slowly move from creating original ideas to managing generated content.
So, they become operators rather than creators.
Exactly. And over time, that reduces the team's ability to develop strong points of view, which is critical for differentiation.
Now, let's connect this to brand drift. How does one lead to the other?
Brand drift is a gradual outcome of these small shifts. When multiple people are generating content with different prompts and speed becomes the priority, consistency starts to slip.
So, it's not a sudden change.
Not at all. Everything still looks good enough. But over time, the voice becomes less distinct and less recognizable.
What are some early signs teams should look out for?
One of the first signs is that your content starts sounding generic. You also notice inconsistencies in tone across channels, and your messaging becomes more optimized for search rather than for perspective.
So, performance might not drop immediately.
Exactly. That's why it's dangerous, because it doesn't feel like a problem until differentiation is already lost.
Let's dig into the root cause. Why does over automation affect strategy so deeply?
Because AI is designed to recognize and replicate patterns, not create differentiation. So naturally, it pushes content toward familiar structures and widely used language.
which reduces uniqueness over time.
The second issue is that volume starts replacing strategy. Teams begin to believe that publishing more content equals better performance.
But that's not necessarily true.
Not at all. Content works when it stands for something clear, not when it tries to cover everything.
In storytelling,
That's where fragmentation happens. You end up creating isolated pieces instead of building a connected narrative that compounds over time.
so the answer isn't to stop using AI.
Not at all. The answer is to use AI with clear systems and guardrails.
What does that system look like in practice?
It starts with structure. For example, having a defined set of prompts that align with your brand voice instead of letting everyone create their own.
So, consistency at the input level.
Exactly. Then comes defining a narrative spine, your core themes, point of view, and what you want to be known for.
So, AI operates within that framework.
Yes, it executes, not defines.
Where do humans fit into this system?
At key decision points, humans should guide narrative direction, approve messaging, and ensure alignment with brand identity.
So, not just editing for grammar.
Exactly. The role of humans is to protect meaning and intent.
How should teams measure success in this new environment?
Beyond metrics like volume and clicks, teams should evaluate consistency, originality, and alignment with brand voice.
So, qualitative signals matter more now.
Absolutely, because brand strength is built before performance metrics reflect it.
And finally, how do teams maintain creativity?
By regularly stepping away from automation. That means brainstorming, writing original drafts, and developing ideas without AI support.
So, humans create the foundation.
Exactly. AI amplifies what already exists. It doesn't replace original thinking.
Let's close with one key takeaway.
AI makes content creation faster, but without control, it makes content weaker. The goal is not just scale, it's clarity, consistency, and identity.
So, the balance is?
AI for scale, humans for direction, and systems for consistency.
That's a strong note to end on. Content doesn't win because there's more of it. It wins when it feels distinct and intentional. Thanks, Akanksha, for such a thoughtful conversation.
Thanks, Abeer. This was great.
And to our listeners, if your content engine feels fast but slightly off, it might be time to slow down just enough to realign your voice. We'll be back soon. Until then, keep creating with clarity.